Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Lovely to see as many of you as possible, and I know that we will have more join. Our subject for today, we know that it's interesting to you as consultants who love to make sure that their projects are properly implemented. It's all about helping your clients implement their projects. And now, um, with the going virtual and the new way of providing your service, I know that you want to even increase their buy-in and speed and effectiveness in implementing them. Our speaker is someone who's affiliated with our chair. She and I talked several times, and I love the personality, and I know that it will show during the presentation and that you will also grab everything she provides to you as new thoughts and new ways of thinking. Kim Addis is the president and founder of Frame of Mind Coaching and Journal Engine software. She's recognized as an expert in the area of thought mastery and mental toughness. Um, Kim is also an author, speaker, entrepreneur, and coach, which is something that she's well known of. She has many publications, and the nice thing about her is that she's a mom of five. So she'll be able to bear with us, bear with all our questions, and give us all that she can during those 1.5 hours. Kim, thank you for joining us. Thank you for agreeing to this. And now, my dear, the floor is yours. You're a co-host. You can share the screen at your end, provide the presentation, and now this is where I go silent. Please.
Um, Amazing. Thank you so much, Rima and Dwight, for inviting me here today. And I'm so pleased to meet all of you, and I'm excited to jump in. And we have, an hour and a half sounds like a long time, but for me, it's a little short. So I'm going to jump in and let's just go. Can you see my screen? Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is what you need to know in order to help your clients implement the projects that you bring to the table with greater buy-in, speed, and effectiveness. And so we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to show it to you from a slightly different angle. So I'm very excited about this conversation. So who am I? I'm Kim Addis. I hope that who you see in front of you looks like me, but let's carry on. Again, Rima said it very nicely, but some of the highlights, I think the one on the top of the page needs to be that I'm a mother of five and equips me very well to help them implement their projects. The president and founder of Frame Mind Coaching and Journal Engine software. I've been coaching leaders and executives for the past 16 years. And we also teach coaching skills. So we certify people in what we call the Frame of Mind coaching method, which is what I'm going to share with you today as a tool that you can use to help your clients implement their projects more effectively. And my focus is on performance through mental toughness and really looking at the emotional resilience piece. So if you wondered what a family of five looks like, here it is. It's a lot. So here's my agenda for today. Number one, I'm going to demonstrate to you why clients struggle to implement. Number two, I'm going to share with you some 3 thinking strategies of extraordinary achievers and implementers. I'm going to share with you 5 steps that you can use to help your clients move to a faster, better implementation pace. And I'm going to give you a bit of a challenge. So I want to start off like this. And Rima, if you wouldn't mind reading what's in the chat box. The struggle is real. And what I mean by that is that I've been coaching leaders for many years, and I've discovered that these leaders tend to struggle in the same areas over and over again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe the areas, and I want you to look at them and say, do any of these resonate for me? And do any of these resonate for my clients? Do any of these resonate for my colleagues? Does any of this make sense for me? Does it ring true? So here are the 4 areas that I've seen people struggle in over and over again. Number 1, is that leaders tend to feel a sense of isolation. They feel the weight of the world is on their shoulders and on their shoulders alone, and they don't have a safe place to share that responsibility. And so while they are surrounded by people, at the end of the day, they don't feel like they can offload any of it. The buck stops here, and they take that very seriously, and that's sometimes a very lonely feeling. Number two is they experience tension in their relationships. So while this image shows a personal tension, what we often see is that extraordinary leaders, people who want to implement amazing initiatives, often feel tension in their relationships because not everybody's on board, not everybody has the same sense of urgency, not everybody is moving as quickly, not everybody even understands. And to a great degree, these people feel misunderstood, and we see communication friction. Number three is they feel a sense of chronic dissatisfaction. And what I mean by that is that typically I work with high achievers, and while they do achieve quite a lot, they never feel like they've achieved enough. They feel like they're behind the eight ball. They feel like they're never as far ahead as they think they should be, they ought to be. They look around themselves and they say, why is this taking so long? Why am I so slow? What's wrong with me? What's taking me so long? I must have some kind of deficiency. And last but not least, it's a term that I invented called slippage. And what is slippage is when people let very important things slip through the cracks. Things like their health, their sleep, they maybe drink a little bit, eat a little bit too much. They're not having a lot of fun. They're not taking care of their families. They're inattentive. All of these things create cracks on the surface or on the inside and erodes their ability to perform and feel a sense of self-confidence. So, Rima, if you wouldn't mind, does any of this resonate for any of you? Please answer in the chat box.
Well, yes, they started coming. Elizabeth is saying yes, definitely. Adelman is saying yes, it does.
Is there
Darsha is saying yes, it does. They're
anything
just agreeing.
specifically? Yeah, which one in particular? All of them? Some of them? One of them?
Okay, now they started answering that. Randwan said yes. Elizabeth said, I work with executives. Hold on. Okay, I'm not following the chat properly. It's moving too soon. I work with executives and see them. That's the note she said. Gulai said it's isolation mostly. Elizabeth continues with it's all of them. Norma says especially the isolation and slippage. And I love that term, by the way, so thank you for inventing it. Ronnie Antonio says it's isolation. Norma says yes as an overachiever. So Christian is saying yes in some way or another. Oksana says now it's getting better. Bisart is saying yes, isolation specifically. Nedmi is saying yes, it's the dissatisfaction part. Bogdan is saying slippage, especially. Do I continue?
No, this is good. This is amazing.
Okay.
Thank you for, I'm
There's
so excited.
One new one. Yeah, there's one new one. And Adelman is saying it's working with teams where I feel that everyone is slow and unresponsive. So
Right.
it's the dissatisfaction with teams and the many managers and clients, organizations.
Amazing. Fantastic.
That's Dr.
Slow and unresponsive. Okay, great.
Yes.
So what do we want to do is examine why that happens. Okay, why are people slow and unresponsive? So let's jump in and really, what creates struggle? What creates slow and unresponsive? Is it that they have a skill deficiency? Like you're asking them to do something and they don't know how to do it? Is it that they have a lack of knowledge or education? Or is it a lack of experience? Is that really what's on the table? Is that what's causing the problem? In order for us to understand that truly, we need to understand what drives performance. So we see struggle, but let's understand where the struggle comes from and what actually influences or impacts performance. In order for us to understand how to make a difference on our projects, we need to understand these two things. So let's jump in. If I told you that the single greatest impact on your performance or your team's performance is related to your thinking, would you be surprised? I'm hoping that people are going to answer no. Not a surprise at all. I know that my thinking has the greatest impact on my own performance. Yes? Am I getting no surprise? No? Okay. So no surprise.
No replies yet.
No replies. No surprise and no replies.
No one is putting, Oksana says, hold on. No, there are two messages. Aldwin says not surprised. Patricia says in 4 areas, plus pandemic equals mindset issues.
Yeah.
I like that, Patricia. Elizabeth says no surprise. I agree. Yes.
So here's the real message, is that your thinking really does play the greatest role in determining your performance. But there's a problem. This is the problem, is that unfortunately, most of your thinking is invisible to you. And you're not aware of the relationship between your thoughts and your results. So now we have a gap we need to fill. And by the way, if you have this issue, so does your client and so do their teams. So your thinking has the greatest impact on your outcomes. Their thinking has the greatest impact on their outcomes. And if they're unsure or unclear or they're unconscious of the relationship between their thoughts and their outcomes, we have a problem we need to solve. And this is the problem I want to solve today. Okay, so my goal is to help you bridge the gap between your thinking and your goals. But my goal is also to help you coach the people that you are working with so that they can help you implement your projects more effectively, reach their goals and the goals of the organization. So here's my question for you. I need a volunteer. Can I get one?
Okay. Anyone who wants to volunteer, you can on the screen, just in the reactions, put the thumbs up. No one yet. Come on. Give expectations, Kim. What is expected of the volunteer?
Oh no, I just need a volunteer.
Okay, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, go ahead. Open your camera, please, and open your mic.
Did Elizabeth volunteer, or Rima, did you assign?
No. Elizabeth said, I volunteer. She had the thumbs up, I promise.
Okay, amazing. Yeah. Okay, Elizabeth, keep your eyes on the screen. And I'm going to switch my slide, and I'm going to give you a very reasonable problem to solve. Okay, ready?
Yes, I am.
So you have 20 seconds to respond to this question. What is the number of this parking space?
That would be like 70, I'd say 78.
Well, keep your eyes, and everybody, please keep your eyes on the screen.
Ah, okay.
Interesting, right? But so wait a second, a whole bunch of things just happened in the past minute and a half. I asked for a volunteer. How many people ran to volunteer? Barely one, right? We had one volunteer out of, what is it, like 30 people on this call, something like that? 1 out of 30. The question is why? So you've come to this workshop specifically because you wanted to learn something. What's the best place to learn from? The place of doing, right? When we do, we learn the best. And how many people chose to be in the position of greatest learning? Only one. Question is why? Why does that happen? Because there's a dialogue that goes on in the back of your head that says, I'm not going to volunteer. I don't know what she wants from me. I don't want to look silly. I don't want to be embarrassed. What if I can't figure it out? And on and on and on. And that dialogue, by the way, is running the show. So when there's an opportunity right in front of you, you are still not taking it. Imagine how many opportunities we are missing because of that dialogue in our heads. And we have a belief that if I volunteer, I'm at risk. And that belief is completely fabricated. We invented it. So Elizabeth, you volunteered. Thank you. You get 100 points from me. Thank you. And I gave you the task. What was running in your mind when I gave you the task? And you can unmute yourself for a moment.
Well, first thing that was the time factor, because I realized that the clock was ticking and I had to respond fast, and I had all these numbers in sequence, so I had to respond quickly. So I kind of looked at the numbering system and I say, well, that may be the one.
But did you feel like, uh-oh, did you panic because of the time?
I was a little bit anxious for the time because I didn't want the time to elapse and not respond.
Yeah. And did you think it was a math problem?
No, I thought it was more reasoning kind of thing.
Okay. I can't tell you how many people say, oh, I'm terrible at math when they see this problem, but it's not a math problem. So what made this problem hard to solve? I'll tell you what made it hard to solve. You had a belief that you could only look at it one way, right? Straight on. And that belief prevented us from being able to solve the problem. And that's what often happens when we have a problem to solve. We look at it one way, in one direction. We don't think that it's right to solve problems by turning our heads upside down, right? That's not how we do things. And so what happens is we come into problems with a very specific paradigm of how we need to solve the problem. And really those paradigms are fundamentally beliefs that determine how we look at everything, whether or not we decide to volunteer. Those beliefs are really, truly running the show. And they are the biggest barrier that you have when you are facing clients that are having trouble implementing. And we have two levels of beliefs, yours and theirs. So let's carry on. I want to share with you a story of one of my clients. So this was a woman who owned a digital marketing company. And one of the things that I do when I coach individuals is that I ask them to journal in an online journal every single day. But at the beginning of the week, I give them a journaling question or a prompt. This happened at about week 8. I gave her a very specific journaling assignment. I asked her to write out in script form an ideal conversation. And she could choose anyone she wanted to have a conversation with. Could be someone alive, someone dead, someone she was dying to meet, someone famous, someone from her past. It didn't really matter. The only parameter is that it had to be an ideal conversation. So she chose, and this was several years ago, to write an ideal conversation between herself and the Obama administration. And what she wanted was she wanted to be Secretary of State. And so in her journal, she decided to script out the job interview. So they brought her in for the job interview. They said, we read your resume. We're very excited about your candidacy, but please tell us in your own words what qualifies you for this position. And in her journal, she wrote paragraphs and paragraphs about her qualifications. She wrote about her background. She wrote about the fact that her family was from Japan and came to the United States and built a business and contributed to the US economy. She talked about her education. She talked about her work experience. And then she wrote out a 10-point plan for all the initiatives she was going to bring to the table in her role as Secretary of State. They were very impressed. They said, wow, you're a very impressive candidate. You're a top candidate. And as soon as we've interviewed all the candidates, we'll get back to you, but we're really excited. At the bottom of her journal, she wrote me a note. The note was, how's that for dreaming big? So I ask you, please respond in the chat box. Rima helped me by reading. Is that dreaming big? What do you think?
Elizabeth says it's big for her. I mean, that's how she thinks of it. She thinks it's big. Norma says, yes, we have to think beyond what we know. Christian says, no, the way I think dreaming big is, not the way I think dreaming big is. Randy says yes. Besart says yes. Dr. Rooster says no. Adelman
No,
says,
how come? Go back to Dr. What's his
okay,
last name?
Dr. G, please go ahead. I don't know your first name. Adelman says, I'm not entirely sure, it's certainly aspirational.
Okay.
Sunil says yes, no risk, dreaming big. But it's Dr. G who says no. Dr.
No.
G, please unmute and tell us why you think so. I don't have the first name. Please unmute yourself. Unmute. We can't hear you. Okay, please go ahead. And what's your first name, please?
It's been proven in many
Gregory. Okay.
psychological assessments that, you know, if we set a goal and say that, oh, we want to, let's say we want to earn $10 million. Well, then that's the limit. We're only going to get to 8 or 9 or maybe perhaps 10. We won't get to 11 or 12 because we set the goal so low. We limited ourselves.
So do you think her goal was low?
In the scheme of things, when I think of dream big, yes.
Okay. So it's very
So
interesting.
you would have
right?
dreamt, sorry, Kim, so you would have dreamt to actually be the president. Is that what you're telling us? Why stop at
Exactly.
secretary?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So here's what's interesting. And again, I'll call you Dr. G too. Dr. G brought something up that was very interesting.
It's Gregory, by the way, Kim.
Gregory. Okay. So
Yeah.
he's taking it even further, but here's what I want to bring to your attention. So she had this massive dream to be Secretary of State, and I gave her a blank slate to create anything she wanted in her journal. And in her journal, what she did was she created a scenario where she still didn't get the job. They said, we're going to interview everyone first, and then we'll get back to you. So even in her imagination, where she could create an ideal situation, she created a situation where she had to wait for someone else to give her the position, where she had to prove her worth in many, many paragraphs before deciding on whether or not to give her the job. Now, what was very interesting here is that was a pattern. So in her role as president of a digital marketing company, she was doing the same thing. She was writing out many proposals and waiting for people to give her the green light. She wasn't closing as many deals as she could. She just wasn't. She was waiting for other people to give her the position to move forward, the permission to move forward.
Kim, I like this note from Patricia. She's saying that, which is exactly what you're saying, her goal was limited by existing parameters. So she didn't even open wide to eliminating parameters.
Exactly. And we're doing that all the time. And what was interesting with her is that the minute she realized what she was doing, she changed her game. She changed her sales approach. She didn't wait anymore. She went and asked for the sale. And literally the next 3 months of her business life, she performed better than the whole entire previous year because this came to her awareness. So what am I really trying to tell you? Is that extraordinary leaders, people who perform, are always challenging their beliefs. And I encourage you to write this down. They ask themselves a critical question. The question is, what do I believe to be true about this problem, this person, this situation, this project that's causing me to feel stuck or hindered in my progress? What do I believe to be true? And is that actually true? Okay. Before I move on, any thoughts, comments, or questions?
There are two. Dr. Gregory says, again, individuals must learn to get out of their own way. Sunil is saying, dreaming big has to be supported by an achievement plan. So even if you want to dream big, you have to actually plan how to. Oksana says, our borders are in our heads.
Yes. And so I think it was Sunil who said it has to be supported by a plan. Well, I'm talking about two things, right? One is, yes, if we're going to execute, we need a plan. But before we even get to the plan, we have to address the beliefs that are standing in the way of our ability to define, design, and execute a plan. So we can have lots of plans, right? I have a plan. I want to lose 50 pounds. But having a plan Doesn't mean I'm doing the plan. Doesn't mean I'm executing the plan. Doesn't mean I'm doing everything on the plan. And the reason that that happens is because I and many others have a set of beliefs that make it difficult to achieve that goal. A belief with respect to weight loss could sound like, well, it's my son's birthday. I should be eating cake. How do I not celebrate? And I have 5 kids. Imagine how many cakes I need to eat, right? So I'm just giving you an example. So one thing is definitely we need a plan. But what I'm suggesting is there are many reasons why people are not executing on the plan. And it has to do with their thinking and the beliefs that are getting in the way of their ability to execute. So imagine that it's 2007, you live in Toronto and you're on a business trip and you're in Colorado. That's pretty far, just in case people don't have a sense for the distance. You go to the airport, your flight home gets canceled, you sleep over for the night, you arrive at the airport the very next morning and they tell you your flight home is canceled again. But you need to get home because it's your daughter's birthday. There you go. And you absolutely must get there. What do you do? Any answers? Any responses?
Dr. Gregory says charter a plane.
Okay.
Hold on, I want to open the chat. Randy says explore other modes of transportation, what could be available.
Okay.
I was actually thinking hire a car if it's doable.
It's far. It's far.
It's too far. Yeah.
Yeah. So
well, those are the two.
Yeah, great.
Norma is saying try another airline. Go to a nearby airport.
Yeah.
Be creative. Make a call. Explain and plan an online event. Yeah, people are now getting creative.
Good. So this is a story that actually happened to me. This was me in 2007. And I didn't know what to do. I had to get home. I promised my daughter I would be there and I wasn't going to break that promise. So I picked up the phone. I called my brother. I said, do me a favor. Can you please find me the phone number for the president of Air Canada? And he said, okay. So he opened up 411 or whatever the phone book was at the time, and he found the number for the president of Air Canada. At the time, the president, his name was Monty Brewer. And he gave me a number and I called the number and a woman answered the phone. I said, hello, my name is Kim Addis. I'm in Colorado. I'm a single mom and I really need to get home. Can I speak to Monty Brewer, please? And she said, well, he's unavailable right now. I said, can you leave him a message? Can you please ask him to call me back? She said, I'll pass along the message, but just so you know, I'm only his wife. So I reached him at home. 15 minutes later, I get a call back from a representative from Air Canada who said, Miss Addis, you're scheduled on the next flight home. So I asked a lot of people, would you call the president of Air Canada? 100% of the people I ask say no. Why? You can't just call the president of Air Canada. That's not done. You can't just get through in this day and age, right? That's an impossibility. And so very often what we believe to be impossible determines what we do and what we don't do, what we try and what we never try. But think about it. If you were hiring a salesperson or somebody to lead the company, would you want the person who's willing to try or the person who says that's never going to work? Think about that. And so really what I'm trying to say is that the way we think about problems will determine how we execute them. Has anyone ever read this story? It's called The Christmas Box. It was written by a gentleman named Richard Paul Evans. True story. So this gentleman, Richard Paul Evans, decided to write a story one day for his daughters for Christmas. And he gave it to his wife and he said to her, hey, will you read this story? I'd like to hear your thoughts. Do you think our daughters will like the book? And she read it and she said, wow, this is an incredible story. I think you should print many copies and we should give them to our friends and family for Christmas. So he did that. And shortly thereafter, he started getting emails from his friends and family and their friends and their family members saying, you should really get this book published. It's an amazing story. And he was so encouraged that he decided to try to get it published. And so he sent out proposals to all the publishing firms asking for them to publish his book. And every single one of them came back saying, no, there's no market for Christmas stories. Nobody reads that stuff. And so he was a little down, but his family continued to encourage him, and he decided to self-publish his book. He printed off 5,000 copies of the book, and on the weekends, he would go from bookstore to bookstore, and he would try to do book signing events. Some days, nobody showed up. Some days, he'd sell and sign a few books. One day, he got an email from the American Booksellers Association. They said, we're having an event in your city. We're expecting 15 to 20,000 people in attendance. Would you like to buy a booth at the trade show? And he did the math. He said, you know, this could be good. It could increase my exposure. Okay, I'll buy a booth. And he got some very nice signs made, and he went to the trade show and he set up his booth and he sat there and he waited. And he kept waiting. But there was no traffic, not for him, not for the booth in front of him, not for the booth beside him. The trade show floor was dead. He started to get very agitated. He said, I don't understand. They promised 15 to 20,000 people. Where are all the people? Like, this is ridiculous. So he got up from his booth and he said, I'm going to go look for the people. He left the trade show hall and he went through the convention center and he found another massive hall filled with people from the front to the back of the room. He said, what is going on here? And he discovered that there at the front of the room, there was a head table. And at the head table were seated all the famous authors. And in front of them were lineups of people who wanted to get their books, who were buying the books and wanted to get them signed. He got mad. He said, this is unfair. People didn't come for the trade show. People came for this. I feel like I've been taken advantage of. At this rate, I'll never succeed. And as he got a closer look at the front of the room, he noticed that there was an empty seat at the table. He went back to the trade show floor, picked up 2 boxes of his books, marched back into that hall, and went and took a seat right at that empty seat at the table. All of a sudden, a lineup started to form, and he started to sell his books and sign them. Again, this is a true story. A few minutes later, 15, 20 minutes later, a security guard appeared. He had like a pit in his stomach, and he looked up at her and he said, sorry, I'm late. And she said to him, would you like some water? She knew that he wasn't supposed to be there, but she let him stay. 1 year later, there was a bidding war for his book to republish it. Simon & Schuster won the bidding war and paid him a $4 million advance. And since then, he sold this book in many, many languages, in many, many countries, and has written more books since then. So the question is, did he take a risk? Was his action a risky action? You can answer too, Rima.
I was thinking it's not risky, it's courageous. And yes, someone could have come and told him, get off the table, it's not your place. But someone might have not. So it was 50-50, and actually he made it.
Yeah.
It's about taking risk. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's what happens though. A lot of people wouldn't do what he did because they perceive it to be risky. They perceive it to be, you know, a threat in some capacity. They perceive it to be something they are not entitled to do. And so they don't do it. They don't take the opportunity that's right in front of them because they don't think they're entitled to that. And so what is the second thinking strategy? Is that extraordinary leaders, high performers, high implementers are very resourceful. And you're probably thinking, I knew that. Nothing new here. But I want to share with you how these people think about resources. First of all, they don't believe that there's a shortage of resources. There's no shortage of time. There's no shortage of money. There's no shortage of help or talent. Everything is accessible, and it's accessible to me. And they don't believe that there's any resource that they are not entitled to have. So there's 2 parts. It's what's available, and am I allowed to have it? They don't believe that for any reason, they are less worthy or less entitled than any other person. Rima, you were going to say something. I saw your
Yes,
hand.
one of the notes from Sunil is saying, breaking the law is not courage, But actually, Sunil, there was no law. There was an empty chair. So I don't get your
Yes.
point. I don't know if Kim does. Tell
Well,
us
this is the
what's on your
thing.
mind. Yeah.
Yes, this is definitely not the law. This is not murdering someone, stealing from someone. It's not anything, right? Yeah. And so, and this is the thing, right? If we perceive it as breaking the law, we're not going to do it. So we don't want to get in trouble. Right? But even calling the president of Air Canada, is that breaking the law? It's not breaking the law, but most people won't do it. Asking for a volunteer, volunteering for something, is that breaking the law? It's not breaking the law. Most people won't do it. Why? Okay,
Correct.
let's
And
continue.
here's a note from Patricia where she's saying from scarcity to abundance mindset.
Yes, thank you, Patricia. Okay, can everyone see this picture? What do you see in this picture? Write it in the chat box. What do you see?
Start telling us what caught your attention. Mine was the clock.
Oh, wow.
And
Ronnie
I
is
see
saying
that
weights. Mhm.
Hear a voice.
panda.
Yes.
Fahadin says the panda. Okay.
Yes. So if
Elizabeth,
I take your attention, and if you guys can see my mouse, it's way up here. Here's the panda.
Mhm.
If I turn your attention to the panda, all of a sudden it kind of jumps out of the page, right? It's kind of a little bit bigger than everything else. And if I have you focus on the panda, almost nothing else matters on this page. So pay attention
Yes.
to that, right? And Nader, you said that specifically. You jumped right there. Now let's look here. Does anyone see the face in this pile of leaves? You see a face. Okay, I'll show you where the face is. You see my mouse is on the side here. I'm coming down. I'm at the bottom. You see this man right here?
Yes.
You see it, Rima?
Isn't that Sean Connery actually? Or
This
it look
guy.
like? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and so now, do you see the face? My mouse is gone. Do you see the face? You still see the face. In fact, if I showed this picture to you tomorrow, you'd know exactly where to look and you would see the face. The face would be the only thing you would see almost, because I'm asking you to focus on something very, very specific. So let me share with you one more story. About 6 years ago, I was working with a client and he said, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, and I want you to coach him, but I want you to treat him with kid gloves. I want you to take very special care of him. I want you to be very careful in how you coach him. And I thought to myself, that's strange. You know, I've been coaching for a long time. Why would you give me those instructions? He said, well, he's a very, very good friend of mine. He's in his early 30s and he has stage 4 cancer. I said, okay. So I got on the phone with him. Oh, I'm sorry. I got on the phone with him and I asked him a couple of questions. The first question I asked was, you know, this is a hard question, but how long do you have left to live? He said, you know, I've already lived longer than I expected to live. I'm on all these experimental drugs. And I'm guessing my prognosis is about 2 years. I said, okay, what is it that I can do to help you? How can I help you in a coaching capacity? He said, well, here's what I really want. I really want you to help me increase my productivity. And I thought to myself, that's very strange. If I had 2 years left to live, would I be focused on my productivity? Not so much. I said, why is that important to you? He said, well, my mother's aging and I want to make sure that I leave her well taken care of. And so I want to grow my business and I want to sell it before I go. Can you help me? Can you make sure that I'm on task? Can you help me and make sure that, you know, I'm not wasting any time, that I'm prioritizing, and that, you know, can you hold me accountable and keep me on task? I said, well, let me ask you a different question. What is it that you really, really want? I said, well, what I really, really want is more time. And I want to grow my business and I do want to sell it. And I do want to leave my mother in a great place, but I want to go travel and take my mother on a great vacation. And I want to be in a wonderful relationship and I want to buy a house and I want to have dinners every Thursday nights with my friends. And I want to run a marathon. I said, let's do that. And I helped him focus on those things that he really, really wanted. The first thing we did was I noticed that In his business, he ran a financial services company. He was like a superhero in that business. He was responsible for every sale and every project that went out the door. He had to make sure was completed with his I's dotted and his T's crossed. He had to make sure that he was looking at everything that was given to clients first. And I realized he was the bottleneck in his business. I said, hey, you know, we should probably talk about hiring people to help you. He said, I can't afford to hire anybody. But in my mind, I felt like he couldn't afford not to hire anybody. His life was at stake. In my mind, my job was to help him reduce his stress so that he could have a better fighting chance, so that his experimental drugs would be effective. I knew that if his stress was too high, it was all going to be useless. And so slowly, we challenged some of his basic thinking. We helped him focus on those things that he really, really wanted, as opposed to the things that he thought he should be doing. And we helped him build a team. It's been 6 years. And in those 6 years, he sold half his company. He took his mother on 2 great vacations. He's engaged. He bought a house. He ran a marathon, a triathlon, and he climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. This is him in the middle. So very often we're focused on the things we should want, the things we think we're supposed to do, the things that other people expect of us. We're not focused on what we really, really want. And what I want to say to you is that people who are able to implement their goals effectively are really focused on what they really, really want. They're focused and they have it clear in their mind what direction they're going, and nothing takes them away from that focus. Rima, you had a thought?
It's unrelated. The first question came to mind was, is he still alive?
He is still alive. He is
Good.
still alive.
Bless him. The second thought was, 2 minutes ago, you gave me goosebumps. And with the end of the story, I was relaxed. So thank you for your storytelling technique. I would love for you to tell me my bedtime story every day, okay? That's what I was thinking. Bless him. Bless him. Thank you for giving him what we really wanted.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. For me, coaching him gave me a very interesting view of life that was very different from any other view of life that I had. And I'll tell you what that was. This man who's every single day facing his imminent death lives with more zest, more passion, more engagement than any other person I've ever encountered in my life. So what are we doing? What are we doing? How are we living? We live a little bit asleep, don't we? We live a little bit unconsciously. We live to please others all the time, every day. We live without a clear focus on what it is that we really, really want and what matters to us. Okay, any thoughts, any comments, any reactions? Because I want to kind of turn the page and kind of give you some ideas of how to deal with this. Yes.
2 notes in the chat. Norma Shori is saying, I'm reminded of Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And Elizabeth is saying, this is such an excellent session. I'm inspired.
Amazing. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. So I want to kind of turn the page, because we have these people who are struggling to implement, and they're struggling to implement because there's something that's stopping them, something that's getting in their way. They're not focused the right way. They have a feeling of scarcity. They're not leveraging the resources they have. And more importantly, they have a set of beliefs that really prevent them from taking your projects and implementing them properly, whatever those beliefs are. Your job is to identify the beliefs and help them move those beliefs out of the way. But let me share with you my journey into coaching. So prior to coaching, I used to own an assessment company, and we used to build simulation-based assessments to help companies make better hiring decisions. And we ended up testing thousands and thousands of people to determine who is a top performer for any given industry. And we collected lots of data, and that data was very informative. It told us that in some industries, there were some characteristics, some personality traits that were very, very vital. But it also told us this: in all industries, at all levels, in all organizations, there was one key determinant of success or high performance that superseded every single other determinant. And that was, if a person had a high degree of emotional resilience, they would be much more likely to succeed. Interesting, right? What is emotional resilience though? Emotional resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity with speed and agility. But my findings also provided additional information. And it was that if a person was able to leverage the adversity, do something good with it, turn it into an advantage, they would be much more likely to succeed. In any case, I sold my business. I got recruited very, very quickly after that to work for a coaching company here in Toronto. I was very excited because their mandate was to help people live extraordinary lives. And I thought, yes, that's for me. That resonates for me. That sings to me. That's my passion. That's what I want to do in life. I lasted 8.5 months. Why? For 2 reasons. Number one, I'm not really designed to work for people. It's not in my DNA. But number 2 is that I watched how they coached. I watched what they were doing. And in my heart of hearts, I thought to myself, they're doing it wrong. They're missing the point. They're working on an accountability model of coaching where they help people reach incremental goals by holding them accountable. And I felt like they were missing something very, very vital, which had to do with a person's emotional resilience, the way they think, and their beliefs. And that's when I created Frame of Mind Coaching. So what I'm about to share with you right now is a coaching approach to helping your clients implement their projects more effectively. Are you ready? Ready. I'm going to give you what I call the 5 simple coaching steps. Number 1 is check your story. Number 2 is get their story. Number 3 is dig under their story. Number 4 is uncover their beliefs. And number 5 is challenge their beliefs. We're going to get into each one by one. I'm going to start off with this. Check your story. I'd like to introduce you to one of my 5 children. His name is Lewis. When this picture was taken, he was 17 years old, and let me set the stage. On the floor over here, paper towel, empty chip bags, a broken iPad, empty water bottle. And here he is lying on the couch, and here are his shoes on the couch. He's sitting here doing something on his computer. We don't know what. And over here on the armrest, you see these 2 things? That's cheese. So I come home after a hard, long day at work. I look into the family room, and this is the scene I see. Now, if you were the parent, be brutally honest here, what would be running through your mind? Please write in the chat box. Any answers?
Okay. We started saying Z generation. Elizabeth said, I would be annoyed. Anyone else fighting anything?
What are you thinking of this child? Like, what's running through your head?
I would say he's comfortable. Bogdan says he doesn't care.
Right, good. So I'll tell you what was running through my head when I walked in the room and I saw this. I thought, what the heck is going on here? You're sitting on the couch with shoes on? Where do you think you live? And what was going on inside of me was disrespectful, lazy, and self-absorbed. But I left the room. I took a deep breath and I took those thoughts away. I checked that story at the door. And I walked in and I said, hi, Lewis, what are you doing? He said, oh, I'm designing a skateboard for my sister. All of a sudden, not so lazy, not so disrespectful, not so self-absorbed. I went into the kitchen. I got a plate. I put the cheese on the plate. I said, Lewis, show me what you're doing. Here's the skateboard he created. Kind of cool, don't you think? So here's the thing. Had I gone in very angry, guns a-blazing, had I gone in and said, what are you doing? Where do you think you live? You think you were born in a barn? Like, right? His response would have been to slam down the computer, go upstairs, and leave behind the mess for me to clean up. And in his mind, he would have thought something like, nothing I do matters. So step number one in your process of addressing your team members, addressing the individuals who are trying to implement your projects but aren't moving so fast, is to assume positive intent and clean up the story that they're inept, incapable, uninterested, uncommitted, all of those things. Clean up that story, assume positive intent. There is not one human being on this planet who doesn't want success for themselves, who doesn't want to achieve, who doesn't want to feel good about their accomplishments. Assume positive intent. Everybody with me? Okay, good. Step number two, get their story. So when I walked into the room and I said, Lewis, what are you doing? That's getting their story. But let me introduce you to someone new. Every time I coach someone, I ask them to fill out a bit of a self-assessment. Tell me where you are right now before we start coaching. And so in this case, I was about to get started coaching with a gentleman who owned a sales training company, a big successful sales training company. And I asked him a series of questions, and I've pulled out some of his answers to share with you today. So I asked him, how satisfied are you with your career? He gave me a 9. Professional relationships, 8. Personal relationships, 10. Finances, 9. Health, 8. Level of peace, 2. That's strange. Everything else is so positive. Why is his level of peace only at a 2? Something doesn't add up. And so I asked him, tell me, everything else is so good and so strong in your life. Why is your level of peace only at a 2? And he said, well, here's what happened. When my son was 12 years old, he was playing basketball at school and he had a sudden heart attack. He was airlifted to the hospital, but it was a little too late and he had irreversible brain damage. So now, while he has survived, and I'm very grateful that he has survived, the son I had before his heart attack is no longer, he died. And now I'm left in this state. I'm not at peace. I can't reconcile this. I see my son in his state and it eats me up. It tears me apart on the inside and I can't get past it. And I said, if I could help you think about your son differently, would that help you? He said, yes, it would be such a game changer for me. And so we started to work together. And one of the things he realized is that his son was still right in front of him. His spirit, his personality, his nature was still right there. And he also realized that this son, the way he was right now, was really what drove him to be a better father, to be more attentive, to make his family the most important thing in his life. And he ended up taking the journals that he used in our coaching process, and he wrote a book called Resurrecting Anthony. And he told the story of his experience as a father who had this terrible tragedy with his son. He was a speaker. He would go on stage, tell the story of Anthony, his son, and at the end of his speaking engagements, his son would roll out on stage and share the stage with him. His relationship with his son transformed, it changed. And while his peacefulness didn't go up to a 10, it went to a 7, a place where he said, okay, I can have a relationship with this son. The son is still here. It's different, but his essence is still right in front of me, and I'd be a fool to miss that. So here's a question for you. Could I have coached him effectively without knowing this story? If I would have focused on the fact that his professional relationships were only at an 8 and they could have been a 10, don't you think I would have been missing the point? So we need to ask for the story. We need to say, what's going on here? Let me tell you another story. This is my family. These are some of my family members and their girlfriends and their significant others. And this boy right here, the guy, the second one in, his name is Michael. When he was 17, he was diagnosed with Ewing sarcoma. He had a bump that grew on his head, and we thought it was a cosmetic bump. No big deal. He went to get it removed, and he had a biopsy, and it turned out to be cancer. So he had to spend 9 months at the hospital. Every 2 weeks, he was in and out for chemotherapy treatments. So it would be 5 days of therapy. He would come home. 2 weeks later, he would go back. So every 2 weeks, he would go in for chemo treatments. And I don't know if you know anything about chemo treatments, but it takes a toll on the body. And what happened with him is he had a terrible taste in his mouth, a metallic taste. He had no desire to eat. As a mom, all you want to do is feed your son. On the last day of chemotherapy, we were driving home and I said, Michael, are you hungry? He said, yes. I said, you want to go grab a bite to eat? He said, yes. I said, what do you feel like having? He said, I want a burger. And he decided that on the 26th of every month was going to be Burgerversary. We were going to go find a burger joint in Toronto somewhere and celebrate his success, his remission, his good health. And so for the past 8 years, we've been celebrating Burgerversary on the 26th of every month. And on every Burgerversary, my husband, who's sitting right here beside me, takes a picture and posts it on Facebook. And we have all kinds of people who are there following this journey with us. On the 19th official Burgerversary, he posted a picture. And I got a comment from this woman. What did she comment? Ahem, ahem. What do you think she was trying to tell me? She was my nutritional coach. What was she doing? She was slapping me on the hand publicly, letting me know that I should not be eating burgers. Do you think she knew my story? She didn't know my story. And she was not in a position to make any comment. If she had known my story, she would have proceeded very differently. Now, here's what happened. This didn't feel good to me. And the other piece was she didn't look closely at the picture and notice that I was not eating a burger that day. She made a whole bunch of assumptions. She did not get my story. And that broke my trust, and I stopped working with her. And so this piece about getting the story is very, very important. Assume positive intent and get their story before you attempt to force or try new implementation tactics or strategies. Understand where someone's coming from first. Number 3 is dig under their story. Is there a comment?
There is a comment, and it's from Dr. Gregory. He's saying it is deeply saddening when others judge us with their presumptions and assumptions, which is what you said. And I love the part where you said that you lost trust in her. And yes, that is what actually keeps the relationship between the consultant and the client at its best, and it's the trust. So thank you for saying that as well. I like that point.
So, and the question is, how do you establish trust? You establish trust through the process of really understanding where they're coming from. And we'll get to this whole concept of understanding. So number 3 is dig under their story. And a lot of people don't understand the difference between get their story and dig under their story. But let me explain it to you. Imagine that a very good friend of yours went to, I don't know if everybody has them, went shopping. And at the shopping center, they met someone they had a wild crush on. And you're remember, you're in high school and your friend went shopping and they met the man of their dreams. Imagine. They come home and they say, guess what happened? I met Stanley at the store. And you start asking her questions. Was he alone? Did he get your number? Did he ask you to the dance? Did you hang out? What did you talk about? Is he seeing someone? Do you think he's interested in you? You're asking all the juicy details. Her story was, I saw Stanley at the store. Now you're asking for details. You're asking the who, what, where, why, when, how. That's what it sounds like to dig under their story. So what I'm going to give you is an example of a journal written by a client. And what I would like to see in the chat box is what questions would you ask to dig under the story, to ask all the juicy questions. I need to attend a networking event and I don't want to go. I hate networking events. I always feel so out of place. I never know who to talk to or what to say. Everyone is there just to push their own agenda. It feels so awkward. So what questions would you ask to dig under the story? Any comments in the chat box?
I think everyone's kind of thinking, rereading. So let's give it 1 minute.
Sure. Oh,
Okay,
comments are coming.
here they are. Scroll up. Okay, Christian is saying, why are you attending such an event if you don't like it?
Perfect.
It's too frank. Dr. Gregory is saying, what is your desired outcome for attending a networking event?
Beautiful.
Out
Love
of
it.
Elizabeth is asking, who will be there?
Great.
Shall I go on?
Please.
Okay. Bonnie's saying, what was your last experience with networking? As in find out why
Fantastic.
they hated this much. Bisart is saying, what is your real intention on attending?
Fantastic. All of these questions are
Bogdan,
great.
there are
Yep.
more. Bogdan is saying, have you ever been to such an event? Norma is asking, can you share what have been your previous experiences of networking events? Gulai is saying, when was the last time you attended such an event? Patricia
Perfect.
says, how do you think others feel about networking events?
Okay,
So
great.
it's
So I'm gonna cut you off, but amazing. So you're asking, why do you need to go? What is on your agenda? What is it that you need to achieve? Is there another way you can achieve it? What makes you hate these networking events? Who makes you go? Why do you need to go? Are there alternatives? And on and on and on, right? We're asking all the questions. And those were great questions. So we have people who are very capable of asking the right questions. Amazing. So number 4 is we want to uncover their beliefs. There's that beliefs word again, right? It just keeps coming up. So I'm going to give you another journal of someone who wrote a situation about himself. And what I want you to do is identify in this journal what beliefs he has. This is probably the biggest secret of my life. If anyone asks me where I went to college, I say the University of Michigan, which is true. When they ask when I graduated, I say I never graduated. I say I finished in, sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. There we go. When they ask when I graduated, I say I finished in 1998. Basically, I never graduated. I never claimed that I graduated. I just say I finished. Nobody except you knows this, and I'd like to keep it this way until my father dies, because he would be pretty devastated and I assume pissed off because he paid for me to go to school. So what are his beliefs? Keep in mind, this is a real person, a real client. Any comments? What are his beliefs?
Okay, everyone, I'm ready to read. Receives conditional love from the father. That's one of the notes from Dr.
So he believes he receives conditional love. Great. What else? I'd love to hear from some of the silent people.
Yeah.
What are his beliefs?
Low self-esteem. That's what Christian is saying. Okay, hold on, they're coming now. Randy is saying he values his father's pride in him more than he values truthfulness. Norma says he feels guilty for not living up to his father's expectations. So
Yes.
guilt. College education is more important than honesty to him. That's what Randy says.
Okay.
Ellen says being honest. Norma, he believes his value is attached to his degree.
Very good.
Lisa is saying he feels obliged about something he didn't accomplish. And Advan says it is afraid of the perception and judgment of others.
Okay. So what I want you to start to think about is framing it in terms of he believes. So all of you said exactly things that were right on, but I want you to really think about his beliefs. So he believes, first of all, that education is very important and that he's been lying to people. He understands that he's been lying to people by making this omission. I finished in 1998, right? He understands that. But he also is walking around and feeling like an imposter, right? I'm not being a true person, and the people around me, my peers, have accomplished their education. I feel a little bit less than. So he believes that he's telling a lie. He believes that education is important. He believes that he needs to hide this from the world because I'm the only person he's ever told. And he believes all of that stuff. But you know what else he believes? He believes his father doesn't know. So this is what happened. His father was dying, and on his deathbed, he went and he approached his father. He said, "Dad, there's something I need you to know. I never graduated from university." He said, "Son, I've always known that." You could not believe the weight that was lifted from this man's shoulders. He said, "How did you know?" He said, I've always known that. And it was never very important to me. All I've ever wanted was for you to be happy and successful. Whether or not you finished university didn't really matter. And so suddenly he was a new man. What he experienced was that his company was growing, and then it reached a plateau. He couldn't get past that plateau because he was walking around feeling like an imposter. And one of the fundamental beliefs was, if my father ever finds out, he'll never forgive me. He'll be mad. He'll disown me. And that was the critical flawed belief that he had. And it was untrue. And here's the thing, is that we often have beliefs that we invent that are untrue. And those beliefs stop us in our tracks. And a lot of your clients have those beliefs too. And once we understand that beliefs run the show, that they are the crux of success and not success, they're the seed, they're the starting point, then we're able to address the issues that our clients are having when projects are being slowed down. Very often what we try to do is get them to change their behavior instead of really understanding what beliefs they have that are standing in the way of their success. Okay, let's continue. Number 5 is we want to challenge their beliefs. So this is a gentleman who's a very top performing real estate professional. He wakes up early in the morning, goes to work, stands in a closet, and makes 100 cold calls a day. So here's his journal. It was 8:30 p.m. and one of my clients both called and texted me. I was pissed. I told them no calls or texts after 7 p.m. because I need some downtime to recharge. I used to get even madder. A few months ago, I lost a client because I corrected them on texting me after midnight. I could have handled it better and possibly retained them for future transactions. This time, I just ignored them altogether and will address it in the morning, whether they like it or not. Unfortunately, it kept my peacefulness at a 5 or 6 instead of a 9 or a 10. So how would we challenge his beliefs? Write it down as though we were talking to him and challenge his beliefs. And when I say challenge his beliefs, I'm not saying be confrontational. I'm saying push back a little bit on the beliefs. How might we do that? Any answers in the chat box? Give me some ways that you would challenge his beliefs.
Okay, they're coming now. Dr. Break is saying he's penalizing himself with negative emotions based on the actions of others.
But how would you challenge his beliefs? So imagine you're talking to him. What would you say?
Address what is within your circle of influence.
Okay, but that would, there was Dr. G, I think.
Okay. Besides is saying, show an example of your working principles.
Okay, so you guys are very smart. You're smarter than this person, and probably smarter than the people you're trying to help. So get more granular, get more tactical in your approach to challenging a belief.
Okay, there's one from Christian, this note. Ask him if he believed you could do something at that time, would waiting until morning make a difference?
Okay.
So it's engaging.
Yeah. So in other words, I'm going to translate that, okay? And here's the fascinating, I'm finding this particular problem the most fascinating of the whole entire time we've spent together. So you're taking a fairly simple problem, and because your minds are so advanced, you're turning them into a complicated problem. And really, here's how we might challenge these. First of all, what are his beliefs? His beliefs are that his clients are disrespecting him. He told them not to call, right? Or text, but they still did it. So he gets angry. So that's thing number one. Thing number two is he believes that when someone calls or texts, he needs to answer them. He believes the phone needs to be on all night long. He believes that they are being malicious in their approach to texting, even when he's told them not to. So how would we address that? We could say something like, hey, might it be okay for you to answer them tomorrow? Very simple. That's how we might challenge a belief. Hey, do you think they're just first-time buyers and just super excited about buying a house? That's how we address the issue of being malicious. Right? So we're pushing back. What we're doing is we're taking his beliefs and we're saying maybe there's something else at play. We're challenging that he only looks at things one way. So I see comments. I'll wait for those comments.
Yes, and I want to say something. Actually, and everyone may not be surprised, this is something that I used, that was a pressure on me personally when I started this job, because I felt that if I got an email now from Australia, even with all the time difference, I need to respond now. My response rate is still good. It's something I'm complimented on actually till now, but I changed my policy. It doesn't mean that I need to acknowledge, I need to reply immediately, but what I do is I reply with acknowledgement. I got it. When it's morning, my time, I'll reply. And now everyone's happy, actually. But there are notes, and I would love to go through them. Oksana is saying, it is important to be a person separate from the clients and customers. Elizabeth is saying communication is important in any relationship. You often take this for granted.
Yes. So the thing is that what we're really trying to do in this process of helping our clients implement more effectively and quickly is look at what's holding them up. And what's holding them up almost always is a set of beliefs that are getting in the way. We might think, well, what's holding them up is, a structural problem, a political problem, a problem inside the organization. But even those problems are born from a set of beliefs. And so your job, rather than push through your agenda, and what I mean by that is, create your timelines and your milestones, and all that is very, very important. But if you notice a slowdown in the process, what you want to do is realize that there are a set of beliefs that are preventing the process from moving forward. In this case, with this gentleman, he gets a text message from a client and his peacefulness goes from a 9 to a 5. So what is his belief? His belief is my clients are responsible for my peacefulness. And when they do something that I don't like, then I'm thrown off course. Okay, so that's a big problem because he's not taking responsibility at all in this case. That's something that needs to be addressed as well. So this is me very quickly. When I had an undergraduate degree in psychology, and then I didn't know what to do with my life. I was 20 years old. I was clueless, didn't know what was coming next. And by chance, I got accepted to take one single course, a master's level course called the Psychology of Education. And it was a course that was like a U-shaped classroom, and the professor made it a discussion-based kind of learning experience. But the thing is that I was the youngest kid in the class. Everybody else was 35, 40, 45 years old, and there was just me, right? 20-year-old Kim. And I participated to the best of my ability. And at the end of the semester, the professor said, okay, I want everybody in the class to sign up for their one-on-one oral exam with me. And I got very scared because I never had an oral exam before. I didn't feel equipped. I didn't feel as prepared as all the other students who were legally master's students, and I was just slipping in. And so I studied very hard. I went to the exam and he asked me questions about Freud and Skinner and Albert Ellis and all the psychologists and all how they related to one another, etc. At the end of the exam, he said, "My God, you must have a very high IQ." And I was shocked. My jaw dropped to the floor because I never thought of myself as particularly smart. I was always, you know, maybe a little above average, B plus, A minus. I was never at the top of my class. I was never at the top of anything for that matter. I never thought of myself as particularly bright. And all of a sudden, there was this man in front of me who saw in me what I did not see for myself. So from a leadership standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, that's your job, to see in your clients what they cannot see for themselves, to see them in a bigger, broader, better light, to see them as capable of taking this project to the finish line. And you need to share that vision with them because they don't always know that they have the capacity to take it over the line. Anybody know what this is? How about now? How about now?
Wow.
You see it? Okay, how about now? Do you still see it? So what we're really doing in the process of helping our clients implement their projects is helping them see what's hard for them to see. And once they see it, they don't stop seeing it. It's still visible. It's still something that they are able to keep their eyes on and their heads focused on. So I'm going to give you a challenge today, a personal challenge. Write these two questions down. What do you really, really want more than anything? And what is standing in the way of having what you really want right now? At the end of the day, this is the question you want to be asking your clients. And you want to understand what is standing in the way of their ability to take this project forward. Underneath their whole list of reasons exist their beliefs. Your job is to help them identify the beliefs that are not aligned with the goal and move them out of the way. So again, write these two questions down. They're challenging journaling questions because very often when I ask people to write what they really, really want, they think about what they should want, what other people want from them, what is expected of them, but not what they truly deeply want. So I invite you to take me up on this challenge. Journal these responses. And if you're really brave, if you're really courageous, if you're really ready to step up, send me your responses. You know what, I'll write my email address in the chat box. If I can just find it. Okay, can you write it, Rima? I don't even know where the chat box is. It's kim@frameofmindcoaching.com. Please send it to me. Please send me your responses and I will personally respond to them. Again, it's kim@frameofmindcoaching.com. Now, I want to share with you a couple more things. So over the past 16 years in my role as president of Frame of Mind Coaching, I've taken a personal interest in trying to understand the impact, the ROI of coaching. Why? Because if I can understand the ROI of coaching, then I could do a better job of selling coaching. And so one of the questions that I've been asking every single one of my clients, particularly the ones that are business owners and executives, is I've been asking them how qualified they feel from a coaching standpoint. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how strong are your coaching skills? Because my interest is understanding the relationship between the coaching abilities of a leader and the performance of their team. My thought was that the higher the level of coaching skills, the higher the performance of the team. And so I've been asking, again, two questions. What are your coaching skills on a scale of 1 to 10? And how satisfied are you with the performance of your team? Now, here's the interesting finding, is that leaders who have coaching skills are substantially more satisfied with the performance of their team compared to their cohorts. So the higher the coaching skills, the more satisfied they are with their performance. And I will tell you really strangely that it's almost a perfect one-to-one relationship. So when I talk about coaching, as your means to help your clients do a better job of implementing their projects, there's a tangible ROI attached to this. This is not a theoretical woo-woo, nice to have. This is a critical piece. This makes the difference between performance and not performance. So I really want to emphasize that. As consultants, we often think very analytically. And I want you to analyze the fact that beliefs play a huge role in a person's ability to execute. And if they're not executing, there's something getting in the way. We want to examine that very carefully. So last but not least, I'm going to share with you 3 coaching mistakes that leaders make when they try to coach their team or when they try to help their employees, their project partners, whatever it is. Number 1, crazy. They empathize. So how many of you thought that empathy was exactly what we should be doing? Unfortunately, so many people don't understand the term empathy. What is empathy? Empathy is actually an emotional experience where you put yourself in the shoes of another person and you feel what they are feeling. Empathy is not an intellectual activity. It's not where you say, yes, I empathize with you, and the words are coming out of your mouth. It's an emotional experience. So imagine you're walking by and you see someone drowning in a pool. How are they feeling? What is their emotional state? They're struggling, they're scared, they're panicked, they're terrified. And if in that moment you decide to empathize, now you too are scared, terrified, panicked, breathless. And in that moment, you have disabled yourself from being able to help them. In that moment, you have jumped in the pool and started drowning right beside them. So what do I recommend instead of empathy? Notice someone's drowning in a pool. Have compassion. Say, oh my God, someone's drowning in a pool. I need to help them. But I don't want you to jump in beside them. I want you to stand solidly on the outside of the pool, reach in and pull them out. You can't do that without some level of strength. And you can't do it when your emotions are blurred by the act or the process of empathy. Doesn't work. Any thoughts or comments on that? I know it's a radical point of view. I know that because everybody thinks empathy is the way to go.
Well, Nada just wrote, you're amazing. Thank you so much. So I believe they got your point.
They got my point. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 2 is that we tend to focus on behaviors instead of beliefs. So we're always looking for behavioral change. If they would only do X, Y, and Z, I will be happy. But let me help you understand. Behaviors follow beliefs. And when we try to only change behaviors, we get short-term change. We don't get sustainable change because people revert back to old behaviors. We need to address the beliefs. We need to make sure that people's beliefs are lined up with the goal, with the project, with the intention, with the steps in the process, whatever it is. We need to make sure of that. And when we focus on behaviors instead of beliefs, it's like looking at a dog, wanting the dog to wag his tail. So you take the tail and you shake it. That's not how you get a dog to wag his tail. And that's what we're doing every single time we focus on behaviors instead of beliefs. And last but not least, leaders, they skip ahead to solution mode. They say, just do this. I know the answer, just do this. And they skip through the process and don't look at the story. They don't dig under the story and they don't look at a person's beliefs. And so they just supply the response, the answer, expecting someone to take it and run with it without really being aware that there may be a million beliefs standing in the way of somebody's ability to get that done. So can I stop sharing for a minute? I'd love to see everybody's faces and I'd love to just take the next couple of minutes to answer any questions or hear any thoughts that anybody has.
There are a couple of notes in the chat. I'd like to read them for you, unless you
Please.
opened the chat already. One from Christian saying, I agree with you and have discussed the issue a lot with other colleagues. Be certain, that's a lovely note, by the way. Thank you for writing it. You are so you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So you've shown everyone who you truly are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I've never heard anybody say that, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, any reactions, any discomfort, anything around any of this content? Is this what you expected? I'm hoping you'll say no. Yeah, Dwight.
It
go
wasn't
ahead.
what I expected, and you and I have talked extensively before, and I was just totally impressed, particularly where you got me thinking is the analytical approach that we consultants tend to focus in on, and trying to solve things up here when we should be thinking right here. So the insights you've given me have been extraordinarily helpful. I really appreciate it.
Amazing.
For me,
Well, yeah, one more, Norma.
yes, for me, excellent session. Really,
Can
it
you
really,
speak closer or louder?
sorry. Is that better?
A little,
Can you hear me now?
a little bit.
Okay, I'm having some problems with, I'm going to turn off the video and just come right close.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's a bit better. Yeah.
Okay, so you raised some very, very good points about digging under people's beliefs.
Yeah.
But I wondered, there was a point that you said about really identifying where people want to be. And I have a client who is with a government agency who has reached the level of the executive director. But right now, his priority is his young family. And he is not paying attention to the work that needs to be done to move the agency toward one of its major projects. And so I would be doing some coaching, but I'm just curious because some people are badly in the wrong place at the wrong time for them for their effectiveness. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, it's perfect. So one of the questions that you want to ask is, what are your goals? And the goals could be personal or professional and or both. And then the next question you want to say is, so what do you think is going to take for you to reach these goals? And one of the things he might say is, hey, you know, like right now I need to pay attention to my family. And you might say, well, do you think that there's a cost to that? And you might, I mean, you know, the question is kind of loaded in a million ways, but it's, you have to decide, you have to help him decide what the priority is, but he might have a set of beliefs that says, my family needs this from me and I'm the only one who can provide it. Alternatively, he might have that same belief around work and he might be creating a bottleneck. So he might say, hey, you know, I'm the one who needs to take this project over the finish line, but right now I really need to attend to my family. And so the best option might be for him to delegate that project to someone who has the capacity to do it. And so we really want to look at what's required to get this project done. What are the resources? And then the challenge that you want to give him is, are you the only one who has the ability, the capacity to do it? Is there anyone else you trust to move this forward? Or can we implement a system where somebody else is doing the legwork and you're doing the checkoffs or whatever it is, right? And so what you're really doing is addressing the belief that he needs to be the only one to do either part of the equation, either be at home or make sure he's the one doing the project. And so it's always related to beliefs. Does that make sense, Norma? Great. Okay, so there was another question. How do you jump from beliefs to go to the solution? Ronnie, you asked that question. And so number one is you kind of always want to, it's a bit of reverse engineering, right? So what are your goals? Your goals are this. And then and so in a way, the goal is not the solution, it's the end game, right? So the goal is the end game. And so you want to go backwards to understand what a person's beliefs are. And when you understand what their beliefs are, you also understand the beliefs that aren't lined up with the goal. So I'll just give you a perfect example. In my case, I have 5 kids, I'm running a company, I'm super busy, and I'm supposed to, write 1 article a week, and I'm drowning, I can't get it done. And so the belief is that I'm the one who has to write the article. And so the solution, there are multiple solutions, many, many different solutions. One solution is maybe you only have to write an article once every 2 weeks. Maybe somebody else can write the article. Maybe you can do a video instead. Lots of different solutions, right? It's not about the solution. It's about what's the belief that stops us from finding a solution. Usually the belief that stops us from finding a solution is there can be only one way to do this, one way to look at this. Just like the parking lot example, we can only look at it this way. We can't turn it upside down. And your job is to remove the belief, find the belief, move it out of the way, and then look at possible outcomes. Ronnie, does that help you? Yes, good. Make sense for everybody? Okay, I'm looking at the clock. We're past our time. I want to say thank you to everybody for spending this time with me, for giving me your attention, for participating in the chat box. Thank you, Dwight. Thank you, Rima. It was an absolute pleasure. I loved it all.
Thank you.
I can't say thank you enough. I mean, at many times I'm with the webinar and I am a bit engaged, and I'm trying to keep everything like set and proper. Honestly, today you got me even not thinking about what needs to be done. You had to remind me to read notes. I was so into it. I know that I came out with a lot, even though I do not provide consulting, but I have all of those members who are my clients somehow. So you gave me insights and I wrote the questions. I'm not sure how I'm going to respond to you, but I might be sending something. And I know many would. And thank you. That's all I can say on my behalf, on everyone's behalf. And I know that when it's on YouTube, on our channel, everyone will be watching. And I know that many would also be thankful for you doing this presentation to us. It wasn't a presentation, it was a beautiful story from start to end.
Thank you. And if I could be of service in any way, please reach out. You have my email address, please reach out.
Thank you.
And we'll send you the link the minute it is uploaded, and I'm definite that many of you will watch it again.
Can you send it to me too, please?
Of course, you'll get it.
Thank you so much. All right, have a great day, guys.
Thank you, Kim.
Take
Thank
care.
you, everyone. Thank you for being with us. Bye-bye.